The galaxy believed it understood humans. That belief would be its greatest mistake. For 3,000 years, the stars had been quiet. Borders were drawn, treaties signed, and ancient wars faded into memory. Humanity lived softly among the elder species, trading knowledge, art, and energy, never power. No great fleets followed their ships. No weapons guarded their worlds. To the galaxy, humans were peaceful, clever, but weak. That illusion shattered in a single moment. At exactly midnight, Earth Standard Time, every human signal went silent. News feeds froze. Music stopped mid-note. Even deep space relays went dark. Then one image appeared everywhere at once. The alien face filled the screens. It was tall and narrow, covered in layered black armor that looked grown, not built. Its eyes glowed faintly red, unblinking, ancient. Thin tendrils moved slowly around its jaw as it spoke, each word heavy with certainty. I am Overlord Carvex of the Draith Imperium. Across Earth, billions watched in stunned silence. On Luna, workers stopped moving. On Mars, children stared at classroom walls turned into alien broadcasts. On distant colonies orbiting red and blue suns, families held each other without knowing why their hearts suddenly felt cold. For 3,000 cycles, Carvex continued, this galaxy has known peace. That peace has made you soft. Behind him, massive shapes drifted in darkness, warships, endless and silent. The Draith Imperium ends that peace today. The words echoed across human space. You will surrender all systems under your control. You will dismantle your governments. Your people will be assessed. Those useful will serve. The rest will be erased. The alien leaned closer to the camera. You have one cycle to respond. The signal cut out. Panic followed instantly. Governments activated emergency protocols. Military analysts searched desperately for threats they could not see. Civilian networks flooded with fear, anger, and disbelief. Humanity had no grand fleet. No visible defense. Every record confirmed it. Except one. In a quiet room beneath the ice of Antarctica, a woman stood before a simple table of dark metal. Her name was Director Asha Moreno, and she was the keeper of secrets no one else remembered. Around her, old screens flickered to life, symbols long erased from public history. A skull formed of stars. A circle broken by a single line. Asha pressed her hand to the table. Begin awakening, she said calmly. Across human space, systems long asleep stirred. On Earth, deep beneath cities and oceans, doors that had never opened unlocked. On asteroids hollowed out centuries ago, power surged through silent corridors. In places no alien sensor had ever mapped, humanity's shadow stretched and moved. In orbit above Jupiter, Commander Elias Rourke received a single message on a private channel. 2 words. It's time. He closed his eyes and exhaled slowly. He had trained his entire life for a moment he hoped would never come. Fleet status, he said. The response came instantly. All divisions standing by. On the Draith Command world, Overlord Carvex watched reports scroll across his display. Human worlds showed no movement. No fleets. No defenses activating. They are frozen, one of his advisors hissed. Like prey. Carvex felt satisfaction ripple through his neural crest. Send the vanguard, he ordered. Let them learn fear. 10,000 Draith warships shifted course. They expected screams. They expected fire. They did not expect silence. In the Procyon system, a human colony world rotated peacefully beneath its sun. No defenses. No orbital platforms. Just cities, oceans, and life. The Draith Vanguard exited faster than light travel in perfect formation. Begin annihilation, their commander commanded. Before the order could complete. Space folded. Not exploded. Not shattered. Folded. Human ships appeared without warning, sleek, dark, and impossibly close. They did not radiate energy. They did not broadcast signals. They simply were. Thousands of them. Surrounding the Vanguard in total silence. Draith targeting systems failed instantly. Sensors returned impossible data. Power grids destabilized as if reality itself had rejected them. "What is this?" the Draith commander screamed. A single human transmission cut through the chaos. Clear. Calm. Almost gentle. "You broke the truce," the voice said. "We kept the memory." The first Draith warship vanished, not destroyed, not burning. Gone. Space closed where it had been, smooth and empty. Then another. Then hundreds. Across human space, the same message reached every world, every screen, every frightened citizen. Humanity's official reply to the Draith Imperium. 2 words. "We remember." And for the first time in 3,000 years, the galaxy realized peace had not made humans weak. It had made them patient. The Draith vanguard died in silence. Across the Procyon system, warships vanished as if erased by an unseen hand. No explosions. No debris fields. Just absence. Perfect, terrifying absence. Draith commanders screamed orders that never reached their crews. Their weapons refused to lock. Their engines screamed warnings in alien tongues that meant only one thing. Reality was no longer obeying them. Commander Elias Rourke watched from the bridge of the HSF Quiet Resolve. His face was calm, but his hands were steady for a reason earned over decades of preparation. Around him, human officers worked without panic, their movements precise, almost relaxed. "Phase nets holding," reported Lieutenant Mara Vance. "Spatial compression stable," added another voice. Rourke nodded. "Maintain containment. No survivors." This was not hatred. It was necessity. The Draith Imperium had ruled through fear for millions of years. They believed strength meant destruction. Humanity had learned something different long ago. Strength meant control. On Earth, the panic began to fade, not because people understood what was happening, but because something deeper stirred. Screens across the planet showed fragments of the battle. Not explosions. Not chaos. Just human ships appearing where none had existed before. People leaned closer. Parents stopped crying. Soldiers lowered weapons they never had orders to use. In the Antarctic chamber, Director Asher Moreno watched live feeds from 12 star systems. Each one told the same story. The Draith advance was collapsing before it truly began. "Activate Phase 2, she said quietly. Across human space, signals passed through channels the Galactic Concord had never known existed. Sleeper fleets shifted position. Defensive arrays unfolded from moons and stars themselves. Civilian systems rerouted power, not for shields, but for something far more precise. On the Draith homeworld, alarms began screaming. Overlord Carvex stood from his throne for the first time in centuries. "Explain," he demanded. An advisor trembled as data poured across the holotable. "The Vanguard is gone. Not destroyed. Removed. Their ships are vanishing inside localized spatial collapses. We cannot trace the origin. We cannot counter it." Carvex's eyes narrowed. "Impossible. Humans possess no such technology." The advisor swallowed. "They hid it." That word cut deeper than any weapon. Hidden. For the first time, fear crept into the Imperium's command chamber. "Launch the first Armageddon fleet," Carvex ordered. 100,000 ships. Burn their systems until nothing remains. The order echoed across Draith space. And humanity smiled. In orbit above Earth, something ancient and artificial awakened. Not a ship. Not a station. A network, built quietly across centuries, disguised as scientific infrastructure, civilian research, harmless observation arrays. Now they aligned. Commander Rourke received another message. Not orders. Permission. "Begin demonstration," he said. Human ships shifted formation. Space twisted again, but this time, it opened. Draith reinforcements exited faster than light directly into traps woven across reality itself. Their ships slowed, frozen mid-motion, suspended like insects in amber. A human voice spoke again, broadcast openly across the galaxy. "You believe war is about destruction," it said. You are wrong. The trapped Draith ships began to move, not forward, but inward. Folded gently, impossibly, compressed into harmless knots of matter. No pain. No fire. Just removal. Across the galaxy, other species watched in horror and awe. The elders, beings who had lived for millions of years, felt something they had not felt since their earliest wars. Respect. Fear. And shame. They had dismissed humanity as harmless because humans chose peace. They had mistaken restraint for weakness. On Mars, in a city carved into red stone, a young girl watched the broadcasts beside her father. Are we monsters now? She asked softly. Her father shook his head. No. We're remembering why we stopped. Back in the Antarctic chamber, Asha Moreno closed her eyes briefly. She remembered the debates centuries ago. The choice humanity made when it first reached the stars. Hide or dominate. They chose neither. They chose to prepare. On the Draith flagship, Overlord Carvex stared at the growing voids where fleets should have been. This is not war, he snarled. This is extermination. No, said a quiet voice behind him. Carvex turned sharply. A human stood in the chamber, unarmed, calm, wearing no armor. A hologram, projected directly into the heart of the Imperium. Director Asha Moreno met his gaze. This is a boundary. Carvex recoiled. You dare appear here? We have always been here, Asha replied. Watching. Learning. Waiting. You pretended to be weak, Carvex hissed. Asha nodded. So you would show us who you truly were. The chamber shook as another Draith fleet vanished. You have one choice, she continued. Withdraw. Dismantle your war engines. End your expansion. And if we refuse? Asha's expression did not change. Then the galaxy will never hear your name again. Silence filled the chamber. For the first time in Draith history, their ruler hesitated. Across human space, the message echoed, not as a threat, but as a truth. Humanity did not seek domination. But it would not allow extinction. The truce had ended. Not because humans broke it, but because someone forced them to defend it. And the galaxy was beginning to understand what that truly meant. The galaxy went quiet, not with peace, but with attention. Species that had ignored humanity for centuries now redirected sensors, archives, and ancient observers toward human space. Old empires whispered to each other in private channels. Younger civilizations watched in open disbelief. The Draith Imperium, once feared beyond measure, was bleeding fleets without a single human world burning. That had never happened before. On the bridge of the HSF Quiet Resolve, Commander Elias Rourke studied a live projection of the galaxy. Bright markers showed Draith movement slowing, hesitating, pulling back. For the first time since the invasion began, the enemy was reacting instead of advancing. They're afraid, Lieutenant Maravance said softly. Rourke nodded. Good. Fear makes them predictable. Across from him, an older officer leaned forward. Sir, Concord channels are lighting up. They want explanations. Demands, actually. Rourke allowed himself a small smile. Tell them they can watch. In a neutral system once used for ceremonial meetings, the Galactic Concord assembled in emergency session. Vast beings of light, towering crystalline minds, ancient intelligences bound to machines, all turned their attention to the human representative standing alone at the center. Ambassador Jonah Hale did not bow. You hid this from us, accused of being older than human civilization itself. You violated trust. Jonah's voice was calm, steady. No. We honored it. You built weapons beyond our understanding. We built defenses, Jonah replied. There's a difference. A murmur rippled through the chamber. For 3,000 years, Jonah continued, we shared science, trade, medicine, art. We never threatened. We never expanded by force. But we never promised to be helpless. An elder species pulsed with anger. You could have ruled the galaxy. Jonah looked around the chamber. We didn't want to. Silence followed. Not agreement. Understanding. Meanwhile, on the Draith homeworld, Overlord Carvex stood alone before the void map. More than a quarter of his active fleets were gone. Not defeated. Not captured. Removed. Bring me the humans again, he ordered. Director Asher Moreno appeared once more, calm as stone. You cannot win, Carvex said. Even now, your people fear what you've unleashed. Asher tilted her head slightly. Do they? Across Earth, people gathered in streets, homes, stations. Not in panic, but resolve. Old arguments faded. Borders softened. Humanity had found unity not in conquest, but defense. We taught our children the cost of war, Asher said. We taught them why we stopped. But we also taught them how to survive. Carvex's tendrils twitched. You are monsters pretending to be philosophers. Asher's eyes hardened. And you are philosophers pretending not to be monsters. She ended the transmission. On the far edge of Draith territory, something new appeared. Not a fleet. A line. Human spacetime constructs unfolded in a perfect arc, an unbreakable boundary woven from gravity, quantum locks, and dimensional anchors. Not a weapon. A wall. The message sent with it was simple and broadcast openly. Do not cross. Draith commanders tested it. Ships that approached slowed, systems failing gently but absolutely, pushed back without damage. The galaxy watched as the Imperium, once unstoppable, found itself contained. Trapped by a species it had dismissed. In a quiet room aboard a civilian transport, an old historian named Lian Ju recorded a message for the future. We always tell stories about heroes, she said. But this is not that kind of story. This is about restraint. About knowing exactly how far you can go, and choosing to stop. Back on the quiet resolve, Rourke received confirmation. All human systems secure. No casualties. He closed his eyes briefly. Relief washed through him, followed by something heavier. Responsibility. Because humanity had crossed a line of its own. Not into war, but into truth. On the Draith homeworld, Overlord Carvex finally did something no ruler of the Imperium had ever done. He ordered a retreat. The command echoed across Draith space, carrying disbelief, rage, and shame. Fleets powered down. Expansion engines went silent. Worlds built on conquest suddenly faced a future without it. The galaxy held its breath. In the Concord chamber, the elders watched the withdrawal in real time. The humans could end them, one whispered. Yes, another replied. But they won't. Jonah Hale stood quietly, hands at his sides. We don't need to prove our strength anymore, he said. You've seen it. What matters now is what comes after. And what is that? An elder asked. Jonah looked out at the stars. Choice. Across human space, the hidden systems began powering down, not sleeping, but waiting. Humanity did not celebrate. There were no parades. No songs of victory. Only a shared understanding. Peace was not the absence of power. Peace was the discipline to hold it back. And the galaxy would never forget the day humans reminded it of that truth. The galaxy did not return to normal. It couldn't. Something fundamental had shifted. The ancient balance, built on fear, dominance, and quiet assumptions, had cracked. Humanity had not conquered anyone. Had not claimed territory. Had not demanded tribute. And yet, everyone felt it. Humanity was no longer invisible. On Earth, life continued with a strange calm. Cities functioned. Markets opened. Children went to school. But everywhere, people looked up more often, toward the sky, toward the idea that something vast now watched them back. Commander Elias Rourke stood alone on the observation deck of the HSF Quiet Resolve. Beyond the glass, human fleets drifted in disciplined stillness. They were beautiful in a severe way, machines built for a purpose no one ever wanted fulfilled. Lieutenant Mara Vance joined him quietly. They're pulling back fully, she said. Draith borders are sealed. No aggressive movements. Rourke nodded. Good. She hesitated. Sir, what happens now? That question had followed humanity for 3,000 years. Rourke didn't answer immediately. He thought of the simulations he'd trained in since childhood. Endless wars. Endless outcomes. Every scenario where humanity went too far ended the same way, with no one left to forgive them. Now, he said finally, we remind ourselves why we stopped fighting in the first place. On the Draith homeworld, Overlord Carvex watched human fleets retreat from the boundary. Not fleeing. Withdrawing. Intentionally. It confused him more than defeat. They could end us, one of his advisors whispered. Why don't they? Carvex's voice was quiet. Because they are stronger than we are. The Imperium had never understood strength without dominance. Never understood power without cruelty. Now its entire philosophy stood exposed, fragile, outdated, dangerous. For the first time in Draith history, citizens protested war, not because they feared losing, but because they feared provoking humanity again. Fear had changed sides. In the Galactic Concord, emergency sessions continued for days. Old treaties were reviewed. New proposals written and discarded. Humanity attended, but did not lead. Ambassador Jonah Hale spoke only once. We don't want your fear, he said. We want your honesty. An elder intelligence asked, and if another empire rises as the Draith did? Jonah met its gaze. Then we hope you remember this moment before calling us. Across the Concord chamber, something rare happened. Agreement. In a research station orbiting a quiet star, Director Asha Moreno finally allowed herself to sit. The weight she had carried for decades pressed down now that the danger had passed. A young analyst approached her hesitantly. Director, did we do the right thing? Asha looked at the stars. We did the least wrong thing. The analyst frowned. Is that enough? Asha smiled faintly. It has to be. Because humanity had walked a narrow edge. One step too far, and they would have become exactly what they feared. One step too short, and they would have vanished. They had chosen balance. But balance always came with a cost. In quiet corners of human space, old systems powered down, some permanently. Entire fleets returned to silence. Crews were released from lifetimes of readiness and allowed to live fully, openly, without secrecy. Not everyone welcomed that. Some feared the galaxy would never forget what humans could do. Others feared it would. On Earth, the young girl from Mars asked her father another question as they watched the night sky. Will there be another war? He considered that carefully. There might be, he said. But not like before. Why? Because now everyone knows what it costs. Far beyond known space, ancient watchers, entities older than stars, took note. Humanity had passed a test few species ever did. Not the test of power. The test of restraint. In Draith space, Overlord Carvex stood before a council no longer built on fear. His authority was diminished, but not gone. He spoke words that had never been spoken by his kind. We will change, he said. Or we will end. No one challenged him. Because everyone had seen the alternative. Humanity did not issue ultimatums. Did not patrol borders aggressively. Did not reshape the galaxy in its image. They simply existed, quiet, prepared, awake. And that was enough. But deep within human archives, locked behind decisions yet unmade, rested one final truth. Peace is not permanent. It must be chosen again and again. And the moment someone forgets that, humanity will remember for them. The war that never truly happened became a lesson the galaxy would never forget. Years passed. Not many by human standards, but enough for stories to settle into history, enough for fear to turn into memory, and memory into warning. Trade routes reopened. Borders stabilized. The Galactic Concord rewrote its laws, quietly removing assumptions it had carried for millions of years. One assumption above all else. That peace belonged only to the powerful. Humanity proved something different. On Earth, a monument was built, not to victory, not to enemies defeated, but to a decision. It stood without weapons or names. Just a single line etched into dark stone. We stopped when we could have ended it. Commander Elias Rourke visited it once, anonymously. He stood among civilians who had no idea who he was or what he had commanded. That anonymity felt like relief. For the first time in his life, he was just human. The grave fleets, once humanity's final answer, were sealed again. Not erased. Never erased. But placed beyond reach, guarded not by soldiers, but by laws written into the very structure of human governance. No single leader could ever awaken them alone. That was the price of restraint. Director Asha Moreno retired quietly. No ceremony. No public recognition. Her work had always existed in shadows. As she watched a sunrise over the ocean one last time from her home, she felt something she had not allowed herself to feel before. Peace. Real peace. In Draith space, change came slowly and painfully. Worlds once ruled by conquest learned cooperation. Some failed. Some rebelled. Some collapsed. But none rose again with the hunger they once had. Because every child of the Imperium learned the same story. Not of defeat. Of survival. They learned about the day they crossed the line, and the species that did not cross it back. The galaxy adapted. Smaller civilizations grew bolder. Ancient ones became cautious. Power was no longer measured only by fleets and firepower, but by something far harder to quantify. Discipline. Humanity remained what it had always appeared to be. Quiet. Creative. Curious. But now, everyone understood the truth behind the mask. Humans were not harmless. They were choosing to be harmless. On a distant colony world, the girl from Mars, now older, studied history in a classroom beneath an artificial sky. Her teacher paused the lesson and asked a simple question. Why didn't humans take control of the galaxy when they could? The girl thought carefully before answering. Because they knew what it would cost them to stay in control. The teacher smiled. That answer spread. And so did the understanding. Humanity did not save the galaxy by winning a war. They saved it by ending one before it consumed everything. The stars continued to burn. New species rose. Old ones faded. And through it all, a quiet truth endured, passed between worlds, whispered through time. If the darkness ever returned, if someone ever forgot what peace meant, humanity would not roar. They would smile. And the galaxy would remember why that smile once terrified the stars.